Ladies and gentlemen, we'll start in about 1 minute. If you'll please find your seats. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to call the regular meeting of the Destin City Council of March 5th, 2018 to order, please. We're going to begin with the Reverend Wayne Brown of the Destin United Methodist Church. If you'll please stand.
Almighty God, our Heavenly Father, we pause before the work of this council to give thanks and to pray for blessing and guidance for our city and for these city councilors. We are so thankful for the gift of life and the blessing to call the amazing city of Destin as our home and the opportunity to serve our neighbors in the city. And so we collectively seek the welfare of this city tonight, God, believing that when our city is blessed, we will be blessed. Your word calls us to obey the governing authorities, and since you have established these authorities to promote peace and order and justice for all. And so, Father, I pray that you would bless our mayor and our city council members and city officials and their families as they serve us and fulfill their given callings. We ask specifically tonight, God, that you would grant wisdom to govern amid the conflicting issues and interests of our times, that you would grant courage to seek the welfare and the true needs of our neighbors, that you would grant the ability to work together in harmony, even in the midst of honest disagreement, and that you would guide us to be leaders your people need in the context of this specific time and place. I pray that for the agenda that's set before us this morning, we pray that you give assurance of what would please you and what would benefit those who live and work in and around the beautiful city of Destin. And finally, Father, I pray that you would renew us with your strength of your presence and the joy of helping to build a flourishing and life-giving community. So bless this city and bless this meeting. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Councilmember Marler, would you lead us in the pledge?
Yes, sir. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Council, do you have any suggested changes for the agenda? If not, I'll accept a motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion. I have a second. Any further discussion? If not, I call the question. Unanimous, yes. This evening we have Mr. Joe Klimek, partner with EFPR Group, our certified public accountant, with us. Oh, I'm sorry. I skipped right over it. Need to approve the minutes. I have a motion.
So moved.
Motion. I have a motion, a second. Any further discussion? Comment? Not. I call the question. Unanimous, yes. Okay, I'll try that again. We have our certified public accountant with us this evening who's completed the audit, Mr. Joe Klimek. Sorry about that. If you'll repeat your name and again, though, and the title for the recorder. Oh, hit the button.
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor, Honorable Mayor, and City Council. My name is Joe Klimek. I'm a partner with the auditing firm EFPR Group, and I'm here to present the results of the audit of the cities of Destin's September 30th, 2017 financial statements. I sort of handed out a summary. Management has put together a comprehensive annual financial report, 92 pages, but I just want to go through the highlights of that report. Management has really done a very good job with their introductory section and their management discussion and analysis, which the board should read and the public should read. It kind of gives you a really good sense of where the city changed during the fiscal year ended September 30th, 2017. Our reports we reviewed our reports and financial statements with management. We are issuing a unmodified, clean opinion on the financial statements of the city, and that the city's financial statements are presented in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, with no exceptions. There were no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies that we noted with the city's internal control structure over financial reporting or compliance with the city's provisions of laws, regulations, and the state of Florida regulations and grant agreements, non-compliance, which would have to be reported to the city council. We have no non-compliance at all to discuss with the council. Management is a pleasure to work with. They provided us all the information we needed in a timely manner. We discussed certain audit adjustments which were made to the statements. So there's two types of statements that are in your financial statements. One is the all-purpose general comprehensive citywide financial statements. Your net position at the end of the year was very, very positive in terms of the citywide general, citywide full accrual, like a business entity financial statements. You had over $106 million, $106,754,000 in net position over the fiscal year. It was an increase of about $2.2 million during the year. Very positive net position. Some governments are basically throughout the state and not throughout the state, but throughout the country, like in New York, they have lots of unfunded liabilities, unfunded pension liabilities, and unfunded healthcare liabilities, which are putting those entities in almost in a very precarious position where their net assets might even be in a deficit position. Not in this case here at all with the city in fine net position. At the general fund level, which is how you really monitor the city's finances through your budget process. At the general fund level, there was a positive change in your general fund balance of $1.4 million. Revenues increased $2.5 million, primarily due to tax levy and the increase in property values during the year. Revenues also had $2.5 million in the Gulf Environmental Benefit Fund revenue also increased, and expenditures increased by $3.2 million, primarily due to the related costs of the governmental fund benefit, Gulf Environmental Fund revenue. I have a chart here. I don't know if everyone can see it. We're looking at our fund balance for between 2017 and 2016. The non-fundable fund balance is about $3 million. Went up $197,000. Basically, it's because of its advances to other funds that are not readily available to spend at the current time. The restricted fund balance is basically your impact fees. You have almost $2 million in impact fees for the various concerns that the city has right here: the park, traffic, police, library, multimodal transportation. Your committed fund balance is $9.6 million. It's committed for emergencies and investments. Your assigned fund balance is $1.6 million, went up $507,000 from the prior year. It basically has to do with encumbrances used to carry forward to the next fiscal year. And your unassigned fund balance, which is basically your unrestricted fund balance, is up $721,000 to $3.6 million, and it's very, very positive. It represents about 25% of your general fund expenditures. Very, very good fund balance to have. We made 2 recommendations to management that are towards the end of the financial report. One was a recommendation to update the investment policy, to have all the language in the investment policy that's required by Florida statutes. You have a good investment policy, you're following it, but you need to put the words in whatever law, you know, the nomenclature of the law that should be an investment policy. And we also ask you, recommend that the board adapt a fund balance policy. And also consider a minimum fund balance benchmark for unassigned fund balance, which is what you would use to, you know, make your decisions on the tax levy. Any questions there?
Council, comments, questions?
On the last recommendation that you made on the unassigned fund balance, and you indicated that you should establish some sort of a benchmark to work against it. Could you tell me a little more about that, what the reasoning is behind it and where it would?
All right, sure, okay. Basically, a fund balance benchmark means that if it was established by the council through either a budget or a resolution, you can use it as like for instance, the ones I see is our minimum fund balance, unassigned fund balance should be 7% of next year's budget. So you always want to have a little bit left. You don't always want to say give it back to, give back to the taxpayer the entire fund balance when you're doing your budget. So you want to keep some for emergency, and you can use a benchmark, whatever percentage of next year's subsequent expenditures would be.
In which case you would carry that forward
Yes,
each cycle?
yes. It would be, we want to retain this amount in unassigned fund balance.
Okay.
Any further questions? I think we're good.
I did leave my card with you. You have any
Yes.
questions, you can call anytime. Thank you.
We have a proclamation this evening. It's the Water Conservation Month. I believe throughout the state of Florida, we're going to declare it for Destin. Clean and sustainable water resources are vital to our city, environment, economy, and quality of life. Since 1998, Florida water utilities and regulators, as well as the governor, have declared April as Water Conservation Month because it's historically one of the driest months of the year. Residents and businesses in Destin are encouraged to do their part and be water smart by taking a few simple measures. Destin water users has always encouraged and supported water conservation through a variety of programs, promotions, and public awareness. If I could ask Mr. Lockwood Warnett of the Destin water users to please come meet me at the podium, I'll read the proclamation. Whereas water is a basic and essential need of every living creature, and whereas the state of Florida, Water Management District, and Destin water users are working together to increase awareness about the importance of water and its conservation. Whereas the city of Destin and the state of Florida has designated April, typically a very dry month when water demands are their most acute, Florida Water Conservation Month, to educate citizens about how they can help save Florida's precious water resources. And whereas Destin water users has always encouraged and supported water conservation through various educational programs and special events. And whereas every business, industry, school, and citizen can make a difference when it comes to conserving water and promoting healthy economy in our community. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Scott Fisher, on behalf of the Destin City Council, do hereby proclaim the month of April 2018 as Water Conservation Month and call upon each citizen and business to help protect our precious resource by practicing water-saving measures and becoming more aware of the need to save water. Comment?
Sure. Mayor, we appreciate the partnership that we have with the city in promoting water conservation. We appreciate the efforts that the city has put forth to help us promote water conservation through the building department and all. And we've seen good results. We've seen a recovery in the aquifer in this area. We've also seen a decrease in the per capita consumption, and it's together with our partners that we're successful. So thank you very much.
Thank you. We now enter our public comments section of the meeting. I only have one card from Mr. Walter Wu. Would you like to come forward? And the floor is yours.
I'm Walter Wu and live on Sunfish Street, and it's sort of strange that this is Water Conservation Month because this is what I'm going to address the council on, and that is paving in Crystal Beach for a parking lot. And the reason I'm addressing this tonight is you've got Seabird Avenue and Crystal Beach included in this water runoff. It is a water runoff. The Luke Avenue will drain into the lake and the lake will rise, and we already have a problem when it rains heavily. In addition, I can prove that there's an erosion problem because you allowed a 3.5-story house to be built in back of me. Because of the way this was structured, from Dolphin Street back, they allowed it to be graded down. All the water runs off from that cement wall that they created, as ugly as it is. All that sand and water drains into my backyard. We have now 3 inches more sand than what we had before, and it almost covered our air conditioning unit. The structure itself is not conducive for Crystal Beach and the way it was set up to be. It's a beautiful place with, at that time, single-family houses, which are now inundated by these monster houses. I understand that the parking is an issue, but the way to do this is to reduce the number of visitors, not promote an increase. And in addition to this, you've got a letter from Sovereign Isle as well relating to these issues. When you have paid parking, and I'm guilty of the same venue, I will go look for free parking first and then say, oh, well, there's no free parking, so I guess we have to use the paid parking. You have other areas that will have more cars parking in their areas which is Kokomo Cove. You've got Ocean View, and these cars will venue into these areas trying to park somewhere. And you've got it now because you have cars on Scenic Highway 98 that are parking on the grass. So I'm asking that a consideration be made, not just for the sake of parking, but also for looking at the grading of that road and where's the water going to go. Because right now, it's either going to flow into my yard or into the lake, which would cause the lake to rise again. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. I've received several emails from your neighbors expressing similar concerns. Council, any questions, comments? Mr.
Yeah, I'm going to get all my questions out of the way tonight. I've got 2 points. I believe under our city codes there, a residential, structure is not allowed to, or not permitted to allow runoff to a neighbor's yard. Is that correct?
If you don't mind, I would like to ask our building official to come up and help answer these questions for you, sir.
Okay. I think,
We have, our code says that you have to retain 1 inch of runoff on site and attenuate a 25-year storm event.
okay.
So if
Yeah.
there is an issue with a new structure, then we need to go take a look at that.
Yeah, okay. I think that's one of the things I wanted to mention. The second part of it is that I'm feeling like the interpretation of our parking is that we will have paved parking, which is not the case. It's going to be allowed to percolate just like it normally does through the soil. So at least that's what I interpreted. Is that what you thought?
That's my understanding.
Okay.
Yes.
These are not going to be paved parking lots,
Okay.
so it shouldn't
As
be
long
any
as
different
there's
than
no
usual.
water runoff, because even though we still have stormwater drains, the area still floods. And that's, all right, thank you.
Councilmember Braden?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I don't know if we need to talk about it now or if we need to wait till the city manager's comments with the paid parking, because I did want to bring this up, what he's talking about tonight. I know I met with a lot of the homeowners.
If I may recommend, sir, since this is public comment and council usually don't engage on public comment, I'm happy to answer all of your questions and concerns under the city manager's report.
Okay, thank you so much.
Walter, can you tell me, I'm looking at a map right now, what was your address, Sunfish? What was the number?
90 Sunfish.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Ramsell?
I'll wait until the city
Okay.
manager comments.
Thank you.
Okay.
That was the only card I received for public comments tonight, so we'll move to city manager report.
Yes,
Ms.
sir.
Lejeune?
And this is the item that I believe Councilmember Braden and Councilmember Ramswell want to discuss, as well as others. So what we've done is we brought you a status update on the pay to park over on the Zerby parking lot. We're getting ready this week to go ahead and open that parking lot. I'm going to go ahead and ask Mr. David Campbell just to kind of give you a brief summary of what we've done with the parking lot.
The existing parking lot behind the community center, we've added some gravel to kind of freshen it up and get it prepared for parking this season. We've numbered each parking space. We've also put up, or we will be putting up, the pay to park signs with the information for the public to be able to access the
the website, which allows them to pay to park exactly like the program that we have at Marler Street. The other thing that we're working on right now is creating roadside parking on Seibert. That would be from Calhoun down to Zerby. We're currently working on engineering drawings, and our goal is to have those plans prepared very shortly and get pricing from a contractor to see how much that's going to cost. And we could possibly have that constructed before the summer season. So that's what we've done in that area as far as parking is concerned.
It's that kind of cost that an unbudgeted item we could afford to have it done before summer season?
We have priced out all of our paving that we use gas tax for, and there is some money left in that gas tax money, and we have to see how much this would cost, and we could possibly use some of that gas tax money.
And the Zerby Street parking lot, we used the revenue from the Marler Street lot. The cost for materials was $5,724, which does leave a small balance left in that fund from the parking, and as the council had instructed, all revenue from paid parking is to go to improve parking throughout the city. We used existing resources of equipment and man labor. That came to $2,230, but that was absorbed as part of the daily working operations. So that created the 51 parking spaces, and then when we're able to complete the on-street parking for Seibert, that would be an additional 26, and then there's some more parking, there's some more of another parcel on the other side next to the cemetery that could potentially be another 44 additional parking spaces. We would not be able to start accomplishing that till next year. We do have the RFP for a private-public partnership for parking garages. That will go out this month. It's being reviewed by the bid committee at the moment. So hopefully we'll be able to get a private company to come in and partner with the city to build parking garages down in the harbor area. And for the rest of the proposed parking master plan, those were proposed projects to be implemented at the discretion and direction of the council. So at this point, except for the ones, the three parking that I have mentioned, nothing else is in the works at this moment as far as the proposed parking master plan that we had presented to council back in December.
Councilmember Marler.
David, have we contacted that apartment complex, because they have traditionally used that area of right-of-way to park their extra vehicles since that place was built when the original Methodist Church was there, and then when they built that building. I just wondered, because I think that's where we're going to have some problems.
The owners of the property have actually come in and met with us regarding the parking, so they're aware of what we propose.
Okay, that was my only question.
Councilmember Morgan.
Chris, we haven't taken any action on the Crystal Beach lot, have we? So.
No, sir, we have not. We've not even started any type of design work.
Sure.
Any decision made on that would come back to council, and we don't have it planned for this year.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Councilmember Braden.
Thank you, Mayor. I've gotten a lot of emails, phone calls about that particular parking lot in Crystal Beach. Met with several folks out there. If that parking lot ever was to come about, I believe it's 100% for short-term rental overflow parking. There's no way somebody's going to park there and walk to the beach. I don't think the taxpayers need to be providing a parking lot and maintaining it for short-term rentals, overflow parking. Myself, I'd like to see it just pulled off the table altogether so those folks don't have to worry about it coming back up a year from now, 2 years from now, because we just don't need a parking lot, you know, right behind that subdivision. And I mean, it's, like I say, if it was closer to the beach, you know, where somebody, we could provide parking for that, that'd be one thing. But I know someone's been talking about, you know, they're just going to sell their house and move on because that's, you know, we're going to have the same problem we've had with the church with the lights. And, you know, there's no telling who else would be using that parking lot. So, I mean, if it was, I don't know if I can ask the council, if we can make a motion on it to just have that one pulled off, that the master plan altogether, so these people don't have to worry about something coming back up 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years from now.
I'll second that if that's a motion.
Ms. Lejeune or Mr. Burns, do
Yeah,
we need
you
a
can-
vote on that or just a consensus?
No, you should vote on that, but you don't have to set aside the order of the day or anything. You can just go ahead because it's related to the parking issues that were discussed.
Okay, so I'll make that a motion to pull that off the master plan, the Crystal Beach parking.
I have a motion. I have a second. Further discussion? Council? Not seeing any, I call for the vote. One no, 5 yes, passes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. That's all I have.
Ms. Lejeune, further?
The next item, sir, is announcements. At this point,
We need to back up just a
yes,
second.
sir,
I'm sorry.
of course.
Councilmember Destin?
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, that was, we were going to talk about the Cyber Avenue Park to Pay. I had a lot of trepidation about putting it online before we can really tackle the problem that is over there and build the parking garages. I'm afraid we're just going to aggravate an already terrible parking problem that we have down in that neck of the woods in the summertime. Right now, on some really sporty Thursday nights, I mean, the parking goes all the way down to Jason Belcher's house, which is across the street from past the library, and that's without it being paid for parking. I worry that if we turn this thing online, we're just going to send all of this stuff into these residential neighborhoods. I have a deep concern about that. But I think there were some members of the public who had reached out to me to talk specifically about this, and they're not able to be here tonight, so I think probably rather than just going and diving into it without them, and why don't we just, I'll make a motion to continue this item to the next meeting.
We have a motion and a second to continue the cyber parking to the next meeting. Any further discussion? Mr. Braden?
Thank you, Mayor. I also wanted to add to that same one, I think there's been a lot of kickback from people from the community center that's paying for activities at the community center, and they can't park at the community center because it's full, and then they got to go down the bottom of the hill and pay there as well. And I really don't think that's fair, and I don't know why the community center is so overflowing, why there's so many people there. I wouldn't think that the community center itself is full of people, but that's just one issue I think we need to address.
May I address that, sir?
Please.
Okay. So with the community center and how it relates to the Zerby parking lot, we are putting in progress a hanger from the rear view mirror so that anyone that is participating in a program for the community center, whether they're parked in the community center parking lot or whether they're in the Zerby parking lot, they will not be charged. That goes for our snowbirds who we love. They participate greatly in our community center, and also for the parents of the kids who maybe are coming for after school or they're doing the basketball tournaments or whatever. So anyone who has paid for programming will be able to not have to pay for parking. Part of the issue that we have is that people who work in the surrounding restaurants use our community center to park their employees. So we're going to be cracking down on that as well. And just as we go forward with this discussion at the next meeting, I just want everyone to kind of keep in mind that as we go out for this RFP and we ask a private investor to come in and build a garage, because that's what it is. It's an investor who's going to invest money in our community to build a garage. They're going to charge parking in that garage for a period in time until they make their return on investment. Then they'll turn it all over to us. It'll be ours again, and then we will continue with the parking. At that point, whether we charge or don't charge, that'll be up to the council at the time. When they're doing the traffic study, which they will do to find out if they can make their return on investment, they're going to look at how much free parking is in the area. And if there is too much free parking that will force people out of the garage into the free parking areas, then they will not make their return on investment, and they will not bid on the project, and they won't build the garage. So part of what we were looking at, not only trying to get a handle on the parking, but understanding that if we're going to bring an investor in, we have to make sure that there is sufficient paid parking in the area. And just for a note of interest, the restaurants along the Harbor Boulevard and the parking to the north side, we've noticed that most, if not all of those people are now charging to use their parking lots anywhere from $10 to $20 at a pop. So just taking all of that holistically as we go forward with this discussion is all that I ask of the council to do.
Thank you very much. Thanks for explaining that.
Councilmember Morgan.
Thank you, Mayor. So the community center, yeah, I know there are woes with restaurant employees parking there. That's going to be paid parking as well? So how are we going to, so we start charging paid parking behind the community center and the lot we've just redone. I can envision that only adding to the community center's woes, with whatever employees parked in that back lot are now going to be parking in the community center. And so, and I'm, you know, I think this needs a lot more discussion in terms of, I'm all for charging for parking, especially to parlay it into parking improvements. And I don't believe in subsidizing restaurants' employees' parking. But Mr. Destin does have a very valid concern that this is going to make that right-of-way problem on Seibert and on Calhoun that much worse. And so before we go forward with this, I would be more comfortable if we had an idea on, you know, enforcement and how are we going to keep these folks from making the right-of-way problem worse, and how are we going, because this will make the community center's evening parking worse.
We have a motion on the floor to continue this to the next meeting. If I could, unless we have something specific on the motion to talk about, I'd like to go ahead and call for a vote on that, and then we'll know when we're going to discuss it. If there's no discussion on the motion itself, I'll call for the vote. Unanimous, yes. Ms. Lejeune? Any further?
Yes, sir. So moving into my announcements, we are trying to set the two workshops that the council had requested, one for discussion of the short-term rental task force recommendations that were provided to council that did not have unanimous vote, and also a workshop to discuss the tree ordinance, which has now been rescinded, but in order to go forward, the council was looking for comments and feedback and participation from the community as to how to better structure this tree ordinance. So that said, I was wondering if we are looking for dates towards the end of March, because Mondays seem to work best. We cannot, we could meet on the 12th. However, we would have to meet in another facility because the supervisor of election will be in this room on the 12th. Then we also have Monday, the 26th, and then moving into the second meeting, second Monday in April. We also have opportunities throughout the rest of the week if the council is interested in other dates.
Councilmember Destin?
Ms. Lejeune, what is our next meeting after the election? Our regularly?
Right, our next regular meeting is Monday, the 19th, and that is the inauguration for the newly elected officials. And
does it make sense to ask whomever is on this board? We may have different members with different schedules, instead of saddling them with a date that may not work for them? Should we wait?
That is at the will of the council. If you want to wait to schedule these until after the newly or returning folks come back, then we can absolutely, I can bring this back and ask on the 19th when you'd like to go forward with it.
Consensus of council, does that sound reasonable to you? I believe that works.
Okay, so I will bring this item back for discussion on the 19th. Thank you very much. That's all I had.
We have the first reading of ordinance 17-15-CC, the mobile vending permitting standards. Mr. Burns?
Ordinance
By
number
title?
17-15-CC, an ordinance of the City of Destin, Florida relating to mobile vending, providing for creation of Chapter 13, Article 9, mobile vending permits, defining mobile vendor, requiring a non-transferable permit for mobile vending, providing a process for permit applications, providing for revocation of permits, providing for incorporation in the Code of Ordinances, conflicting provisions, severability, and an effective date. And this is first reading. It's not a public hearing.
Ms. Lejeune, further?
Yes, sir. I'm going to let the Deputy City Manager, Mr. Stephen Schmidt, present this item. He has been the one working on this and is most knowledgeable of staff.
What you have before you is an ordinance for mobile vending permit standards that has come before you before, along with another ordinance that would modify the Land Development Code. This one modifies the Code of Ordinances. At the request of council, we made one minor revision to it to add town center to the other ordinance to allow town center mixed use to be utilized for short-term mobile vending. Because that was a substantive change affecting the Land Development Code, we basically had to take that back through the LPA. It was approved again unanimously, and so this is back before you with this particular ordinance unchanged from the prior ordinance. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Do I have a motion or would further discussion before the motion? Motion?
I'll make the motion, if that's what
Please.
we're waiting on. I move that the City Council approve Ordinance 17-15-CC on first reading and direct staff to schedule a second reading for final adoption.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it, Mayor.
I have a motion, I have a second. Discussion? Questions?
I have one question for Mr. Schmidt. On the long-term mobile vendors, do we require parking?
Yes, we do, and that's only in the South Harbor mixed use or the Calhoun mixed use areas. But yes, we require that if they set up in existing parking spaces, that they replace those and also provide for parking for their employees.
Okay, and that's new language that we put into this. That language didn't exist prior?
It was in there in the prior version.
Was it? Okay, thank you.
Not seeing any further discussion, I call for the question.
Mayor, I'm going to have to abstain. I've got a food truck in the Harbor District.
Five yes, one abstention. Motion passes. First reading of ordinance 18-07-CC to repeal and replace section 647.
Ordinance number 18-07-CC, an ordinance of the City of Destin, Florida relating to administrative amendments to the Florida Building Code, amending Chapter 6, Article 2, Building Code of the City Code of Ordinances, providing for incorporation into the Code of Ordinances, providing a fiscal impact statement, providing for conflicting provisions, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. And this is first reading and is not a public hearing.
Ms. Lejeune, further?
Yes, sir. This is to update our building code so that it is compliant and matches the state of Florida building code. I have our building official here to speak to this item. Was there any summary that you wanted to provide the council?
Yes, I'd like to do some clarification on it because it's kind of something I not understand it. But what this is Chapter 6. The Florida Building Code is you're able to amend just the administrative section, which is Chapter 1 of the Florida Building Code. And that's how you enforce the code kind of thing, and you have rules that go by that. So this is just, what we had before was old and very dated. I think it was last rewritten like in 2002. So it was time to get it back in line with what's currently in the Florida Building Code. So that's what we did. And that's basically the gist of why I'm doing this.
Do you have a motion? Anyone?
I move that City Council approve ordinance 18-07-CC on first reading and direct staff to schedule a second reading for final adoption.
Second.
I have a motion, I have a second. Discussion. Councilmember Braden?
Thank you. I'd like to ask my fellow council members if they are familiar with the International Property Maintenance Code. Have they read and understood that?
You're asking me?
The entire council.
Absolutely not.
Anybody have know anything about it, read it? No? This ordinance also has the International Property Maintenance Code buried in it that trumps all of our ordinances for code enforcement. According to this, if you'll look at the Section 104, Section 104.3, right to entry. Code enforcement, they can gain entry or go to someone's house and request entry. If not, if the property is unoccupied, the code enforcement shall first make reasonable efforts to gain. If not, they can go in the property. And there's a whole lot to this International Property Maintenance Code. Like I say, it trumps all of our ordinances and gives code enforcement a whole lot more authority on this issue. And so I'm just letting you know, if you, there's a whole, they can do pretty much do anything they want to our residents. So if we pass this tonight, this is going along with it.
Excuse me, Mayor?
Yes.
May staff address Councilmember Braden's concerns?
Please.
Thank you, sir.
I understand your concern, Mr. Braden. The Property Maintenance Preservation Code, there's still rules that apply to unlawful entry to even building officials and such, and you would still have to gain approval either through court of law or what's the other word I want? Anyway, permission, yes. And we can't just barge into a home or an establishment on our own accord.
Right. I mean, I understand that they just can't go in somebody's home when they're not there. But my concern is this. I mean, I've been going over, and it just goes on and on and on, and it just gives our code enforcement officers a whole lot more power. And it's, like I said, it trumps all our ordinances, everything we've done, from trash, parking, lights, everything. Does it not?
Does this conform with state statute?
Yes, it does, sir.
So this is state statute already.
So not for us. We have our ordinances.
We're in Florida.
Yeah, but why is it in here if it,
If I could
Hang
continue.
on a minute.
please?
Ms.
Okay.
Kopp, would you want to, well, one of you, would you like to address that?
The Florida Building Code is already binding in the state of Florida. Our code contains some older provisions of the Florida Building Code, so this is an update to match up what's already existing for Florida State for the most part.
This is not just building code. I understand about the building code, but this has something to do with our building or code enforcement as well. It's not just the building code.
I understand. The property preservation code is in addition to, it doesn't trump our existing laws we have and codes we have for properties.
If we adopt this, then it does. It gives the code enforcement officers a whole lot more power. I mean,
It doesn't give code enforcement officers more power. It may include additional it may include additional rules so that if there's violations of the property maintenance code, code enforcement could go out to enforce that, but it doesn't give code enforcement more power.
but it does, it just puts a whole lot more language in our ordinances. The way I read it, is that not true?
There's more rules, so if they are violated, code enforcement could then go enforce those rules as it does any other ordinance.
Okay. I just have great concern about it. I mean, I wish it wasn't, because it doesn't mention that anywhere on here. I mean, it does mention it, in the packet down at the bottom, but when you look at this, it's just a building code. We're going to update the building code, but there's a whole lot more to it than just updating the building code. It's updating, it's giving this with something that we don't have, this International Building Maintenance Code. That's also wrapped in with it.
It's an administrative amendment to the code. It was already in the Florida Building Code, and it was already part of that code. And I'm just including it in basically I'm bringing it forward, that it's part of this, my administrative code too.
If you look, sir, under the conclusion, it says this new version provides the tools to facilitate the uniform and consistent application and enforcement of the Florida Building Code. The new version being the new version of the Florida Building Code. So built into that is that section that you are referring to that does facilitate uniform and consistent application and enforcement. So it does give us the enforcement tools that we need to enforce the new building code that the rest of the state is adhering to. We were way behind the curve. We hadn't updated this since 2002, but it's not giving any additional power. It's just saying here are now tools, code enforcement people, to help you enforce the building code, if I clarified that for you.
You could always pass it without that section tonight and revisit it if you need to at a later point in time.
I wouldn't recommend that, because passing the Florida Building Code without that section, this is a part of the Florida Building Code.
Well, it's optional. We don't have to have it in our code. They can take it out.
I think I can offer a solution, guys. So you guys probably think I got a hot date tonight and I'm trying to get us out of here. But I think whatever concerns you may have could be legitimate. I think probably what we could do is probably continue this to the next meeting and instruct staff to visit with Mr. Braden, and perhaps legal counsel can get together. I don't know, either one of you or both of you, and perhaps synthesize his concerns into a memorandum and then address it, because I'd like to look at it. I just don't think we're going to get it done tonight. And so I'll offer a substitute motion to continue to the next meeting.
That'd be great, thank you.
We have a substitute motion. I forgot who made the original motion. I think we need to have that withdrawn.
No, if I need a second and then we vote on it.
Okay, do I have a second to the substitute
Second.
motion? We have a motion, we have a second. Further discussion, Councilmember Ramswell?
I'll go ahead and hold off, but in looking at this, it looks like this is the standard that cities use in Florida. And is there another standard that others do use? And we can save this for future discussion, but that's just sort of what I'm gathering.
It's similar to having the standard housing code, which we have for building safety. So this is another form of that in a whole property type situation.
Okay, call for no further discussion. Call for the vote. Unanimous yes, and that is to put it off to the next meeting. We're now moving into public hearings. The public will have an opportunity to speak on the next three items. Second reading of Ordinance 1722 PC, the Comprehensive Plan Amendment. Would you please read by title?
I was not provided the title of my packet, so I'm seeing if Ms. Kopp has the title, actually.
I don't have it either.
We do, just give us 1 sec to get there. Do you mind if I read it, Jeff? Okay.
Take a 5-minute break. Ladies and gentlemen, if you'll start returning to your seats, I'll start the meeting. Calling the meeting back to order. Are we prepared to read by title?
Yes.
Scott?
This is ordinance 17-22-PC, an ordinance of the City of Destin, Florida, amending its Comprehensive Plan 2020, providing for authority, providing for findings of fact, providing for title, providing for jurisdiction, providing for intent, amending Chapter 1, Future Land Use Element, amending Chapter 2, Transportation Element, amending Chapter 12, Administration, and amending Chapter 13, Glossary, providing for transmittal to the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity, providing for incorporation into the comprehensive plan, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. As you know, this is the city's proposed comprehensive plan. Staff is not recommending that you move forward with first reading tonight because as of the date of the agenda, staff had not received a final determination by DEO with respect to their comments. So at this time, staff is requesting that you continue this item. You can continue it to a date certain to avoid re-advertising because it has already been advertised, or you don't have to continue to a date certain, in which case staff would re-advertise.
This part of the discussion, should that be part of the public discussion too, or is that limited to council for this section, just setting the date?
No, you can continue it without any, that's not the end of the hearing, so you can continue it without any further input on the issue.
Okay, council, discussion, comments?
I'll make the motion to continue to a date that the staff can have all the information they need.
I think we need to pick the
date.
They're prepared whenever we are.
First meeting in April, then, let's try that.
That is the first meeting in April, just to be specific. April 2nd, so you would be continuing to Monday, April 2nd at 6 p.m. or as soon thereafter as it would be heard.
Yes.
I have a motion. Do I have a second for April 2nd? I'm not seeing a second.
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Discussion? Not seeing any discussion. I call for the vote. Unanimous yes. There'll be set the date for this for April 2nd. First reading of ordinance 1716 LC, establishing zoning and location requirements, regulating parking, maintenance, displays, and signage for mobile vendors.
Ordinance number 17-16-LC, an ordinance of the City of Destin, Florida, relating to mobile vendors, creating section 7.21.00, regulating mobile vendors, establishing zoning and locational requirements, regulating parking, maintenance, displays, and signage for mobile vendors, providing for additional regulations and prohibitions for mobile vendors, providing for enforcement, providing for incorporation into the Land Development Code, conflicting provisions, severability, and an effective date, and this is a public hearing.
Ms. Lejeune, further?
Yes, sir. So this is the second part of the new mobile vending regulations. This part of it is in the Land Development Code, which is why we had to treat them as two separate issues. And I'm going to let Mr. Schmidt go ahead and summarize this one for you.
As Ms. Lejeune said, this is the Land Development Code related portion of the mobile vending ordinance. This is the one that actually went back to, came back to staff at your request for the minor change, well, actually a Land Development Code change to add town center mixed use to the short-term vending operations. That change was made. It went back through the local planning agency, was approved unanimously, and it's back to you for approval with just that one minor change.
Again, this is a public hearing. Is there any member of the public that would wish to discuss this item? Please stand or wave your hand. Not seeing anyone. Council,
I'll make the motion, Mayor.
please.
I move the city council approve ordinance 1716-LC on first reading and direct staff to schedule a second reading for final adoption.
I'll second it, Mayor.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? If not, I call the question.
Mayor, I have to abstain. I've got a food truck.
One abstention, unanimous yes. First reading of ordinance 18-05-LC, adopted floodplain management regulations. By title, Mr. Burns.
Ordinance number 18-05-LC, an ordinance of the City of Destin, Florida, amending Land Development Code Section 11.04.00 flood damage prevention, providing for authority, providing for findings of fact, providing for flood mitigation prevention, providing for purpose, providing for methods of reducing flood losses, providing for definitions, providing for general provisions, providing for administration, providing for flood hazard reduction, providing for additional variance procedures, providing for administration violations, providing for flood-resistant development, buildings and structures, subdivisions, site improvements, utilities and limitations, manufactured homes, recreational vehicles, and park trailers, tanks, and other development, providing for incorporation into the Land Development Code, providing for a fiscal impact statement, providing for conflicting provisions, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date, and we're here on a public hearing.
Ms. Lejeune, further?
Yes, sir. This has been a long time coming. Staff has been working on this since before I got here, and with all of the changes in staffing and not having a certified floodplain manager on staff, I would like to personally commend Ms. Noel Bell for the incredible job that she did picking this up, organizing the resources and the staff that she needed to go ahead and get this completed, and I think she has done an incredible job. So I'm going to let her go ahead and present this item to you, but I just wanted council to know that as our building inspector, she has gone above and beyond to help make this happen.
When the new, I think it was the 14 building code came out, no, it was 2010 building code came out, the Florida building code for the first time put in some flood provisions in the building code, which was not in line with our current flood ordinances. So that's when the FEMA went in and said, well, we need to revise the overall model code that cities use to adopt to include these provisions for which the Florida building code and I think even the ICC code had changed. So a lot of this is based upon that, and then some of it is based upon helping us obtain a better CRS rating for our flood insurance premiums that people pay. So we're hoping that these revisions will take care of everything, and we'll be back on track with the flood ordinance. So, any questions?
Councilmember Braden.
Thank you. I don't have any questions on this particular topic. I just want to apologize earlier for maybe insinuating that the staff or city manager was trying to cover something up, or I mean, I'm sure that's probably where I came off, but I know this council and the city manager and staff pride ourselves on keeping everything transparent and above board. So I just wanted to say that, I wasn't trying to say that staff or city manager was trying to do something underhanded or bury something, that the citizens wasn't aware of. There was just a lot more to that than I personally realized. So I figured you was fixing to leave as soon as this was over, Ms. Noel, so I just want to make sure you knew that before you stepped out, that thanks for all your help, and I have a lot of respect for you. And I sure didn't want you thinking that, I was insinuating something. But that's all I have. Thank you.
Councilmember Marler.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll make the recommended motion. I move that the City Council approve ordinance 18-05-LC on first reading and direct staff to schedule second reading for the final adoption.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Okay. Again, this is a public hearing. Any member of the public that wishes to speak on this item, stand up, wave your hands, let me know. I don't see anyone. Council, discussion? I see no discussion. I call for the vote. Mr. Marler? Yep. Unanimous, yes. Thank you. We have the consent agenda next. No items were, well, there's only one item. Can I have a motion?
I'll make that motion, Mayor, and I just have a question of what is the usual suspect? That's what we're reimbursing Ms. Ramswell for. I was just curious.
Second. I have a motion. I have a second. Discussion?
I'm just curious what it means.
So the usual suspects is a television show that talks about Florida politics. It's filmed in Tallahassee. It's shown weekly. The host is Steve Van Orn and Steve Van Cor. And it's pretty popular throughout Tallahassee and in southern Florida, and is shown all the way up into Georgia. And they discuss topics that are affecting the legislature. And I was invited to be on the show, and we discussed vacation rentals, the bills that were up in the House and the Senate. And so I traveled and participated, and it aired on the 17th, and that's what it's all about.
Any further discussion? Did I get a motion on that? Yes, I got a motion and a second. Good. No further discussion. I call for the vote. Unanimous, yes. Comments by council members. As normal, Councilmember Braden, we'll start with you.
I'm good tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Councilmember Ramswell.
I actually wanted to take a moment to thank Councilmember Foreman for his service. I believe this will be your last council meeting before the election, so your last full council meeting, is that right?
Well, I'll be back in the inauguration.
How many years have you served on council?
Well,
total?
I'm completing 14 years, plus I've served on committees prior to that.
So I want to thank you so much for your service. And that's all I have.
Councilmember Foreman, that leaves you with the farewell speech. Are you going to do that at the next meeting?
Well, I appreciate what she just said, and I appreciate the opportunity to serve. I think it's an important thing for people to do, to put their name out there and to be faced with all the criticism that goes with it, in spite of the fact that you come in and do your best. So, you know, I wish the new council all the best in the world, and think that I've learned to you know, bend a little bit every once in a while to accommodate the desires of the other council members here to get things done. I know you've heard that before, but I think it's important to...
Jim, I always feel like you're talking about us.
But thank you.
Thanks for your service. Councilmember Marler.
Nothing there, except I'm going to miss Jim sitting next to me up here, so it's going to be interesting next week, or next meeting. So other than that, I have nothing.
Councilmember Destin.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to tell Jim thanks. I know it's my father served on this board for 20-something years, and you've served close to that as well. It is a real sacrifice and a testament to your character to go at it for that long. And I just want to tell you thanks. It's been a privilege to serve with you.
Councilmember Morgan.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, Jim, I know we don't always agree on a lot of stuff, but I look to you often. You've got a lot of wisdom, and I've really enjoyed serving with you, and I'll miss you. So, thank you.
Ms. Cobb, land use.
Yes. Tonight, I don't know if you've had a chance to look at the agenda item, but basically, I'm requesting that you all declare invocation of the pending ordinance doctrine for us as staff to create some municipal regulations as authorized by the Advanced Wireless Infrastructure Deployment Act of 2017. Basically, prior to last year, most local governments could rely on our own land development codes and telecommunications ordinances if the city was to receive an application for facilities to locate within the right-of-way. However, last year, a new law was passed, as many of you know, and under this new law, the wireless providers can file applications to collate certain small wireless facilities on certain utility poles and structures in our city right-of-way. So the city is now required to process these applications under certain timelines. They must approve the application unless there is a justified reason as allowed by the statute. So what we want to do is create some regulations to the extent we are allowed under the statute, and that would come to you for approval. But in the meantime, the law requires that we would inform the Secretary of State 10 days prior to any first reading of the ordinance. So for that reason, we need to come to you now, because if we wait till first reading, it will obviously be too late. So with that said, the request is for the mayor, with consensus from the city council, to announce the pending ordinance doctrine and to authorize myself and staff to notify the state.
Councilmember Destin?
That was left over from the previous motion. You have my approval.
Any objections? I think you can take that as unanimous approval.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Burns?
Before I get into what's on the agenda, I'd just like to thank you to Councilmember Foreman. You've been the model council member since I've been the city attorney. You've been someone I could lean on for information at times with your institutional knowledge. And I think you're more of a throwback to how politics used to be, where you can compromise. Now everything's black and white and polarizing. And so I think whoever replaces you would do good following your example. But the item on the agenda I have is just a request that the council actually vote to give the city manager authority to execute the inland contract for the dredging project on Holiday Isle if that contract is finalized before the next council meeting, and it appears that it has to be executed, that inland might move on, that y'all. She arguably does have emergency procurement powers to do that in the first place, but it would be a little bit cleaner if y'all go ahead and vote tonight to go ahead and okay that she does that.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion. I have a second. Discussion? Not seeing any. A call for the vote. Unanimous, yes. That concludes the business before the council tonight. Any member of the public wish to speak on any item?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Jason Belcher, 147 Cybert Avenue. I want to thank the council and the city staff for the diligent work on the parking plan, especially as it relates to my neighborhood. As a chamber board member, I know how important it is for us to support our businesses as best as possible. But Chatham, something your father said at a Destin Forward class in 2015 has stuck with me. It was destined to be a great city if we make it a great city for the residents. And I think we have to balance these things. I've been concerned for some time about what free parking has created, especially street parking, in my neighborhood. And unfortunately, it's not out-of-town folks that are usually the suspects. Long before the city had its tree ordinance, I had my own. I stand out and make sure that nobody urinates on my father-in-law's big oak tree that grows out by the road. To not this last seafood fest, because it was canceled, but the one before, I ran off 2 folks from defecating in the right-of-way and several from urinating. And it's just not the type of element I think we want. I see them bringing their own coolers and their own chairs. They're not buying beers at AJ's. They're not eating dinner at Harbor Docks. They're not at Dewey's sitting on the back deck enjoying the fireworks. They're taking advantage of a free fireworks show and other free services, which is fine. I grew up dirt poor, and I had to have those things myself. But you got to respect the rights of the people that live around you. And I tell you, several times, if you want to see something funny, watch for a 300-pound man laying down in the dirt fixing his own water main when it's been run over by somebody parking over the top of it at midnight. If you want to see steam come out the top of my head and words that a Christian shouldn't say, you just come on by and I'll let you know. It's not very fun. And in a serious note, I've made light of this because it's important, but seriously, when my in-laws moved here, they crossed a wooden bridge. They've been here 50-plus years. In the area they lived in, a lot of their neighbors and stuff have moved on and passed on and gone on, but they're still there. A school teacher and a man who was a store shop finance banker. Really good people. And I just hate to see the area that they've loved, that they've cultivated, planted azaleas and magnolias and oaks and done everything they can to make our little patch of Destin nice be turned into something that's really a circus. And so be real thoughtful about how you go about it. You know, there's drainage issues, there's a need to balance the business along with the residents. And so take your time in making that decision, and I would appreciate it. I know the residents along Cyber Avenue would too, so thank y'all very much.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? Not seeing anyone move. I adjourn the meeting.